to preserve, protect, and promote human rights and human dignity for all of the residents across our city in accordance to Article 8 of the City of Albuquerque Charter. I encourage everyone who's interested in learning more about the Human Rights Board, our responsibilities and its powers, to read the full Human Rights Board ordinance that we are bound to. And you can find that ordinance on our website. And at some point, if we can share that as well, that link to that ordinance. I also at this moment wanted to clarify that no one, and I repeat, no one, asked us to hold this special meeting on their behalf. It was a decision made solely by the members of this board in direct response to recent incidents that have occurred in our city with respect to George Floyd, Black Lives Matter protests. Our nation is in a state of unrest due to this accumulation of historic abuse and violence committed against Black people and people of color. And as the Human Rights Board, it is our duty to address human rights issues as they arise and impact our city. So I am Dr. Virginia Necochea, and I am the chair of the Human Rights Board. And at this time, I want each member of the Human Rights to also introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Adrian Lawyer. I use he pronouns, and I'm the vice chair of the Human Rights Board.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sami Assad, and I am part of the Human Rights Board.
Hi, y'all. My name is Shraddha Patel, and I'm a member of the Human Rights Board. My pronouns are she, they.
Hi, my name is Joan Marie Yazzie Gallegos, and I'm a part of the Human Rights Board.
Douglas Alsip, he, him pronouns, Human Rights Board member.
Michael Jefferson.
So before we proceed, I want to hold a moment of silence for George Floyd, for Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, Ahmaud Arbery, Eric Garner, Philando Castillo, Alton Sterling, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, and all of the other countless number of Black people and other people of color who have been unjustly and inhumanely killed across our nation, including incidents that have happened in our own city. We keep their families, their friends, and their communities in our hearts and minds, and you are not forgotten. I also at this time would like to pay a recognition to the original peoples of this land. It's something that we do out of respect, and that is most appropriate as visitors who are here on Tiwa people land. So, you know, again, just the appropriate respect paid for them as well. And before we proceed to approve our agenda, I want to quickly provide an overview of the logistics on how this meeting will run. And given that we're on this online platform, it adds a whole host of challenges that makes this, you know, unique during this time. But I'm thankful that we have this technology and we're able to hold this special meeting of the Human Rights Board. And so I want us to keep at the forefront the reason why we're here tonight. And that's, again, to discuss the recent Black Lives Matter, George Floyd protests and incidents related to those protests that have happened in the city of Albuquerque. And with that, it's understandable that we will feel strong emotions and reactions. And it is my hope that we can carry out tonight as a community free of any aggressions. But because we are on this online platform, we also are mindful that there might be technical glitches and that there might actually even be security issues that may arise. And we ask the community and the public for their patience and support if anything should arise during this meeting. We're hoping that we don't have any major technical difficulties, but if we do, and for some reason, if this meeting stops, then we ask you to wait about 10 minutes and then give us the time to come back on with you. So the other thing is, ideally, we would be holding this meeting in person, but because of the current pandemic and the restrictions that continue in place, we're unable to do so at this time. So again, we just thank you all for your patience and support with this. Most importantly, we're going to begin this meeting with public comment, starting with the list that has been generated by Cristo Velarde, who is Office of Civil Rights Staff. And that list represents the individuals who signed up for public comment by email or by phone. Once we go through that list, we will also give opportunity for those of you who are in attendance to also provide verbal comments during this meeting as well. And so the way that's going to work is Crystal will call each name that's on that list, and then we ask that individual that once their name is heard to raise their hand using the raise hand function on Zoom. And you can find that if you click on participants towards the bottom of the screen that you're seeing, you'll be able to see, once you click on participants, you'll be able to see the raise hand feature that's located there. So once you hear your name, we again ask you to raise your hand, and one of our staff people will unmute you so that you can provide public comment. Each person will be given 2 minutes to provide their public comment, and Crystal will try to provide, as much as she's able to, a 30-second notice before your time is up. But we ask the community to be very mindful of the time allotted for public comment, because it seemed like that's going to be quite a bit of the meeting today. And that's a major part of why we are holding this meeting. So, Giovanna, Crystal, or Maria, are there any other clarifying information that you need to provide at this point regarding logistics for public comments?
If they can just go ahead and put them in the Q&A.
Okay, yes, I was going to say that part too. So the other, I'll add to that now, Crystal. Thank you for the reminder that we're also encouraging people that you can use the Q&A part of this webinar to enter your public comment as well. And we assure you that we are going to read every single public comment that has been provided to us in the Q&A section or by email or phone. And if for some reason, you also want to, send us your public comment by email after this meeting, we encourage you to do so as well. So you can provide public comment again verbally tonight by entering your public comment in the Q&A section, or also by sending your public comment by email at civilrights@cabq.gov. And we can share that information with all of you as well. And so again, that we're doing this to try to assure that this portion of the meeting runs as smoothly as possible, and that your voices are heard during this very important time in our community and our nation. So with that, I'm going to move to approve the agenda for tonight.
I second.
So if the members of the board, those of you in favor of approving the agenda as is, please say aye.
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 Any objection? None noted or abstaining? Okay, none noted. So we will now move into the public comment section. And again, we thank all of you for joining us tonight, and for providing your concerns and suggestions and recommendations to us. And we want you to know that we have included a discussion item on the agenda tonight as well. And so for public comment, we want to hear you and what you have to say, and we'll reserve any points of discussion for that item in the agenda. So thank you.
Virginia, can
Crystal-
you please show can we show the agenda?
Can we what?
We show the agenda to the public. So that was a question.
Okay, Crystal, are you able to do that? We can also, I would say that we can also send a link for the agenda if someone from the staff can include that link so that people are able to see that agenda. But what I'll do is, for the sake of answering that question, Samia, what I'll do is I'll quickly read the agenda items. There's not many, so that the community can hear that at this point. So the first item, a call to order. The second, thank you, Tori. Second, approval of the agenda. Third, public comment. Fourth, discussion of George Floyd Black Lives Matter protests in Albuquerque. Fifth, decide next steps, our plan of action. And sixth, the adjournment. Okay, so with that, if we can move on to public comment now, Crystal, I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
And the first one that I have that's signed up is Miss Zoe Kraft.
Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to kind of echo, I had sent in a formal written report as well to the board, but I wanted to kind of read that out and echo that here. So my name is Zoe Kraft. I'm an 18-year-old student who goes to UNM, and I am also the co-founder of Fight for Our Lives. I was present for the events that occurred on Thursday night during and after the Black Lives Matter protest, and also worked to co-organize that on behalf of Fight for Our Lives. So the protests that occurred at the intersection of Central and Wyoming earlier in the day, which began around 6 p.m., were completely peaceful. And a number of people came out in solidarity with their community and with Minneapolis. And eventually later that night, a group of protesters did return to gather at that same intersection of Wyoming and Central, which lasted later into the night. And when that happened, many of the organizers of the original event returned to ensure that these protests would remain peaceful and also to keep our community safe from police violence. However, during this later protest, there were multiple attempts that were made on protesters' lives by a driver of a white pickup truck who attempted to speed quickly through the crowd multiple times, fast enough that protesters needed to jump out of the way of the vehicle. And at this time, the Albuquerque Police Department had our event surrounded, but still did absolutely nothing to try to protect protesters from this threat. And things escalated to the point where civilian protesters were forced to block the intersection of Wyoming and Central with their cars to prevent other protesters from being run over. So this action alone on the part of APD is completely unacceptable. And shortly after 11 p.m., we were able to remove cars from the intersection to allow traffic to pass by. However, when protesters were preparing to disperse and head home at approximately 11:30 p.m., we received word that multiple young Black men were being held at gunpoint by APD at the intersection of Central and Mesilla, which was just a few blocks from the protest. So protesters made the decision to move to that intersection in an attempt to prevent unjustified state violence against these youth of color. And when we arrived at that intersection, there were 10 to a dozen police vehicles, and many police officers, all with guns drawn, blocking the road to Mesilla and surrounding these young men of color. After some time, these APD officers did leave with the young Black men in custody and began to vacate the intersection. And protesters also began to disperse when we saw those original APD vehicles leaving. However, while we were preparing to head home, the APD officers who had left began to be replaced with multiple city buses filled with police in riot gear, heavily armed and very close to outnumbering our peaceful protesters.
10 seconds.
Okay. And eventually, tear gas was thrown by these riot police into the crowd of peaceful protesters, ultimately causing major injuries that the community was left to deal with from a completely peaceful and unarmed protest.
Thank you, Zoe, for your comments. I'm not sure if you got cut off there at the end because of technical issues, but I would really urge you to, if you haven't done so already, I think you did say at the beginning that you've sent this information to us. So thank you for your comment and for informing us. So we'll continue to move through public comment, Crystal. Thank you.
I have Reverend Erica Leah Shamika.
Hello. My name is Erica Lee Simka, and I'm the pastor of Albuquerque Mennonite Church, and I've prepared something to share. This past week or so have included significant public responses across the United States, including Albuquerque, as we attempt to make sense and deal with the death of George Floyd by the hands of Minneapolis police officers. I understand the organized responses following Floyd's death include concerns much broader than one man, but a very long pattern of disregard for the holistic well-being of African Americans and other dark-skinned peoples. This disregard, hostility, and at times direct violence is a problem here in Albuquerque and with the Albuquerque Police Department. The most acute example is how the Police Department have not responded recently to protesters. My information sources include some of the congregants on the ground wishing to express their First Amendment rights of free speech and freedom of assembly without intimidation by militarized police and/or white vigilantes openly carrying assault-style rifles. I urge work with APD so that best practices will be the first course of action rather than setting up snipers and using tear gas against nonviolent protesters. Recall that tear gas is considered a chemical weapon and is outlawed in warfare by the Geneva Convention. And the letter that I submitted for formal comment does include footnotes on that. My congregants and I also desire to express our First Amendment right to freedom of religion. For us as Mennonites, this includes being a peace witness, as we believe God requires us to be. By responding to congregants' faith-fueled, peaceful protest with violence and intimidation, I believe our religious freedom of expression is dangerously close to being violated. Thank you for your swift response to this matter as you work with APD on de-escalation best practices.
Thank you very much for your comments. And I just wanted to share quickly a reminder that this meeting is being closed captioned, and it's on the YouTube, on a channel, and that's going to be shared in the Q&A as well. So for people who want to tune in with closed captioning, that is available. Thank you. Crystal, if we can continue.
The closed captioning should also be an option on your bottom toolbar. Next up, I have Alfred Matthewson.
Hello, can you hear me? I am Alfred Matthewson, and I want to say to you and to the community of Albuquerque and to everyone, I love you. Whether you're white, black, Hispanic, Native American, Asian American, whether you're an immigrant, gay, lesbian, transgender, regardless of your socioeconomic circumstances, I love you all. If I did not use a term that identifies you, I love you. You are included in my all. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, I love you. And I want everyone to know that Black Lives Matter. I was listening to Brian Cologne's Capacito con Colon this morning, and some of the Facebook comments asked for an explanation of what's wrong with saying all lives matter. What's wrong with it is that in this country, all has never included blacks. Thomas Jefferson did not include us in all. Men are created equal in the Declaration of Independence. The founding fathers did not include us in We the People in the preamble to the Constitution. We know this because Justice Roger Taney told us this in the Dred Scott decision. No, if you can only bring yourself to say all lives matter, your intent to include Black lives is ambiguous at best. It signals that Black lives are excluded because you cannot say it explicitly. I opened as I did at the beginning because it's the approach used by President Mandela and Dr. King, who did not say just all. They were explicit about whom they included in their all. Now, I do not mind people saying all lives matter, so long as they explicitly state Black lives are included in that all. There are issues here in Albuquerque. There's currently in place a consent decree between the city and the Department of Justice to reform the Albuquerque Police Department. We must take advantage of that consent decree to bring about a transformation in institutional culture that people can touch and feel. We must fast track that transformation. We must address other systemic inequities in education, housing, healthcare, and employment. And so I would say it's time to change America. Let's change it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfred.
Next up, I have Miss Sarah Namadi.
Brian Colon tweeted me. Sent me a message.
Could you repeat that name, Crystal, or spell it out if you need to? Or you found Saida?
Saida. Okay. I found her.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. Hi, my name is Saida Namaste. I wanted to speak to you today about the concern I have around how police are responding to Black Lives Matter protests in Albuquerque. Thursday night, I was part of the march that was organized, and later that evening, I heard that there was an issue happening near my home at Mesquita that Zoe was referring to. And it was very late at night. It must have been like near midnight. And I went out because I too am concerned about how police interact with people of color in our community. And I've been trained in cop watching. So I did go there. And when I came home that night, my daughter said, "Mom, why do you smell so bad? Why do you smell like chemicals? Why do you stink?" I had to scrub the tear gas off of me and put my clothes on the back porch so we didn't stink up the house. And it's exactly as Zoe described, and I want APD to reflect on, like, why could they not just leave? They tear gassed us right before they ran to the city buses to leave the area. Once the police were gone, everybody went home. But I don't understand why they couldn't find a different way to leave than tear gassing us. I was doing nothing illegal. I was doing nothing wrong. And then on Sunday night, my daughter went to a student organized protest for Black Lives Matter. And they marched from campus downtown, and they marched back up to campus, and they marched back down. They were amazing, hours of peaceful protesting. But when she came up to campus, I got a photograph from a friend of snipers on the roof of UNM with guns pointed. And I called a friend who was there and asked him to look, and he said, yes, there are snipers on the roof of George Pearl Hall. I called my daughter and I said, where are you? And she said, I'm in front of Frontier Restaurant. We might go in and get food. And I said, get out of there. I should never have to fear that my daughter, who is peacefully protesting, or myself, would have this type of treatment or have to be intimidated or have to worry for our lives. And so I would like, again, to know who authorized snipers on the roof of George Pearl Hall? Why were there riot police Monday night in formation by Pope Joy? There was no reason for any of that. We weren't rioting. And so I really want an evaluation of how police are responding, who is authorizing, and I don't ever want to see that happen again. I don't ever want to have to call my daughter and say there are snipers with guns trained on you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Saida, for your comments.
Next up, I have James Robinson.
Can everyone hear me? Okay, so I'm going to be quick about this. I'm a public school teacher here in Albuquerque. I attended some of the same protests that others have mentioned, and I want to echo and kind of re-amplify what they said and their concerns. I guess my main concern is that I know that the office of the mayor and the city of Albuquerque have been concerned with this idea of community policing, and I think we need to push back on that and realize what the limits of that are. Community policing tends to build the goal is to build relationships in the community, but it all too often privileges those who already have power in the community, homeowners, business owners, things like that, and then they use the police to leverage what they want against houseless people, people of color, things of that nature. And so I think we as a community need to be pushing our leaders to, instead of funding militarization of our police, giving them, these war weapons that harm the people of our city, I think we need to be pushing our leaders to invest in universal programs that will help our communities, universal programs such as housing, healthcare, education, childcare. And I saw someone posted this in the chat as well. And it's also something I'm concerned about as an educator with police officers being on our campuses. And I would love to see our district follow Minnesota's lead as well. So that's pretty much all I have to say. And I'll cede the rest of my time if there's someone else who would like to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, I have Zachary. Zachary also sent an email.
Is Zachary here with us, Crystal? Have you? And what we can do after we take verbal comments, we can also share some of the public comments that we received by email or phone as well, Crystal, and also share some of the public comments that have been typed into the Q&A. And just a quick reminder that we encourage the public to enter your public comments using the Q&A function on Zoom or emailing us as well. So thank you. So Zachary's not here?
I'm not finding him unless he called in.
Okay, well, why don't we go on to the next person, and then we can call his name again after we go through the list.
Patrick Barrett. Jeanette McCullen.
Hi, I live in the International District, which is where the majority of the African American population lives. I have seen APD intimidate the residents of the area for years, and I've lived here for 16 years. What I have heard with the protests and how APD covered it with the snipers is totally wrong. And it's disgusting. We are one incident away from turning into Los Angeles. The failure of the city, our mayors, and that's not just Keller, but the mayors before that, and APD, and the lack of Black officials in city government, elected officials, and the APS. All this factors in what's going on right now. I am very embarrassed to say that I live here. I would like to live here, but we've got to do better. All of us. You know, it's just terrible. I wasn't able to go to the protests because I had to work, but this is not surprised that APD detained people of color. And it's terrible. We've got to do better. And we've got to demand change at City Hall and in Santa Fe and get representation, because representation matters. As I've said, we are one incident away from the idiots raising down Louisiana or Central or going toward Uptown. And we need to get our voices heard. It's ridiculous. Voting is not enough. Just heartbreaking to see. Now, in my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
I have Diane Cordova next. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I think you're mistaking me for Diane Cordova. This is Diane Torres Velasquez. And I don't know if Diane Cordova's on the call, but I was asked to unmute, and I think I'm just being mistaken identity.
So sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead, Diane.
Well, I actually sent in a letter. This is Diane Torres Velasquez, not Diane Cordova. But I sent in a letter explaining my concerns. So I don't want to take too much time away from everybody else who has concerns, because I know you have a lot of people on the call. But my major concern was that anything can happen at any time. And we've had so much police violence in New Mexico with so many people killed needlessly. As I watched through live stream video, it was horrible. It was horrific. At any moment, those youth leaders' lives could have been taken. And these were not just any youth in the city. Although all youth lives are valuable, these youth have been groomed to be the leaders of the next generation of our fight for justice. They have been educated and mentored by community advocates. And this happened right at the moment that the older generation went home. Luckily, there was a mentor there that could talk to them and could communicate somewhat with the police, but the police were not communicating back. There was nothing from the helicopter that I could hear on the live stream. There was nothing from the police. They were just kind of expected to know what they were supposed to do, and then they were gassed. There was a lot of violence that night, including the way that they showed up as SWAT team with buses and helicopters, and they were treated as criminals without any trial. So please feel free to read my letter, but I give my time to someone else.
Thank you, Diane, for your comments, and we'll be sure to read your letter. And again, I want to assure the public that any public comment or letter statement that you've sent to us by email, we are, please rest assured that we will be reading and taking all of your comments into consideration as well. So thank you. And Crystal, did you find Diane Cordova?
I did not.
Okay, so we'll move on. And then if you can also please keep track of the people we called out earlier. So we'll give them another opportunity in a bit to be able to provide public comment as well. So we'll move on to the next person.
Absolutely. Next, I have Lovey McGee. And I did, but I didn't know if she's on the phone using another name.
So Crystal, if after a bit, you are not able to find that person, or they haven't raised their hand or any other technical challenge, feel free to move to the next person. And then we, like I said, we can call their name again to give them that final opportunity.
Of course.
Thank you.
Can I have Paul Graffany? He emailed us statements. I'm not finding him in the search. Can I have Anita? Anita, I'm going to allow you to speak. Go ahead.
Hi. So my name's Anita Amstutz. I'm an ordained and licensed minister. I've done a lot of, over the years, work in the community around peace and social justice. But I just want to place myself as someone who comes as a settler. And for the past decade, I've been learning about the doctrine of discovery and seeking to know what it means for me to be part of dismantling that doctrine of discovery in this white system of supremacy. So I think the good news is that we're hearing the words white supremacy in media now. We get it. It's out there. The hard news is that we are trying to figure out how to break that, what is an entrenched system of state-sanctioned violence and brutality? How do we break it open in our own city? About 10 years ago, someone spoke to this earlier, that we did have the Department of Justice do a review of our police after we had a lot of police brutality and violence. There was a policing oversight committee, and I don't know if that's still active. But and I thank you all for your volunteer work in this human rights committee. I'm really grateful for this, because we have to keep pressing. Do we reenact that oversight committee again to really speak as people who are, citizens of this city, to how we hold our police responsible? And a big question I have is funding. Defunding. I've been trying to listen. I hear that all over the place. So the question is, what does the city's budget look like? How much money goes to, a police system on steroids? We talk about community policing, but how do we force the city to look at how we are actually providing housing, food, safe spaces, and not more police? We have to look at money, budget, and force the city to reallocate and have creative ways we begin to take care of our Black and Brown communities and because a police on steroids does not help that.
Thank you, Anita, for your comment. And I just wanted to say that we do have the Civilian Police Oversight Agency, and they are an active board. And if someone knows offhand their next meeting, because from my understanding, they hold monthly meetings. I'm not sure when their next one is. So if one of the staff members or possibly one of the attorneys can just share when that next meeting is. Or share that information as you find it with the attendees, please.
Yes, good evening. My name is Edward Harness. I'm the Executive Director of the Civilian Police Oversight Agency. The next CPOA board meeting will be Thursday, June 11th at 5 p.m. Right now we are conducting those meetings via Zoom. So look for our agenda to be posted by 5 p.m. on Monday. We will post it at our website, and also it will be posted publicly at the Plaza del Sol building. Yes, thank you for posting the website, the link there. I would just also like to express that we would appreciate the public coming forward with their concerns with the allegations that I've been hearing this evening, so that we could conduct an investigation into those allegations. So any information that could be provided, we have investigators that can do that work and can determine whether or not the department is acting within policy, and if they are, then maybe there needs to be some changes within the policy. So we have the ability to do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward, for sharing that information. So again, just to repeat that to the public who's in attendance, and to please be sure to send your concerns to the Civilian Police Oversight Agency as well. And if I heard correctly, the meeting is next week. So we'll definitely, that information has been shared with you all. So there's another venue that you can approach as well with concerns regarding incidents that have happened in our community. So thank you. We'll keep going with public comment, Crystal.
So I found Miss Lovey. She is on the phone, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute her now.
Hear me now?
I can hear you
me?
now. Yes.
Wonderful. I'm chopping at the bits because I couldn't speak, but thank you. Anyway, I just wanted to say that, yes, my name is Lovey McGee. I have 2 sons. I am a Black woman with 2 Black sons, and I have lived and experienced bigotry and racism ever since I've been here in New Mexico because of my sons. It's like racial profiling them at all times. They're grown now, but there's still problems. And I think that it's high time that this community get together and demand better than what we have right now. And I will lead the pack. But the bottom line is that it's like white folks try to, they're the problems. We're not the problems. It's because of their mindset. And we need to try to change their mindset that, you know what, we're humans. I don't understand how they love black dogs and brown dogs and cats and animals, but yet when they see a human being that's a Black, African American, something snaps in their mind. Well, it's time that we get them to snap in the right direction. And that's what I have to say about it, because this is crazy. I mean, for 500, 600 years back, we've been experiencing discrimination. And it's high time that we don't wait for somebody else to do something for us. We need to stand up and do something for ourselves. We don't need to continue to take this when our sons, our daughters, our children, our mothers, our fathers are being killed by the cops. It's not acceptable. And that's what I have to say. It is not acceptable. Living it as long as I've lived, having to defend my sons the way I've had to defend my sons. And one is still going through hell. And he is grown and he tells me he can handle it. And you don't know how bad I want to step into it. You don't know how bad I want to tell you on this phone what's happening to my son. But he's not going to like it, and I don't want to do it. But I think I need to come to you all and let you all know what's going on with my son. I cannot stand it. I cannot stand it. And if I don't understand, but anyway, I'm kind of done. All I want to say is that it's high time for us to stand together. We can do more together than we can separate. Together we stand, united we stand, divided we fall. We can do very little by ourselves, but we can move mountains together. And that's what we need to get our heads together to do, is move these mountains and these barriers that's been in front of us for so long. How can they think that, I mean, you can love a black dog, four-legged dog, but you cannot love a black human being because they feel like they're privileged and they want to feel like they're better than us. It's high time to let them know they're no better than we are. I'm done.
Thank you, Lovey, for your comments. Thank you.
Up next, I got Devontae. I don't know if he was going to be calling in. I can't find his name in the search box, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Devontae Watson, are you on? If you know, and again, Crystal, we can give we can call the names out again after we go through the list. So just to give that opportunity. But I know he sent something in. So if you can't find him, then if you can please go to the next person.
Next up, I have Kendra Duran.
Hello, can you hear me? Great. My question was, has the board considered an international approach by including international resources such as the Durban Declaration and Program of Action? I see these as tools that can provide avenues of collecting statistical data and incorporating human rights into policy analysis and advocacy.
Were you asking that now, Kendra? Because right now we were taking just overall public comment. But I did see your email earlier, and it's something that we're definitely going to bring up in our meetings. So I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything else, Kendra.
Yes, I would. I'm sorry. I cut out there for a minute. I just wanted to elaborate on that for anybody who would be interested in taking this route. I have a lot of experience in initiating universal and international approaches through things like strategic litigation. And I think this is a really right time for New Mexico to get involved in this. As George Floyd's justice plays out in the court system, several professionals could prepare a variety of resources that we can unroll at a strategic time and place. Public policy experts, lawyers, advocacy experts, NGOs, educators, journalists. I really think we could develop a really strong team that can really take advantage of this right time, so that we can see actual change.
Yes, thank you, Kendra. And I definitely going to look further into what you included in your public comment, and it's something that I know that I and others on this board are interested in. So thank you for that information.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Next up, I have Verna Berger. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Vera Berger. I'm 18 years old. Thank you for holding this meeting. Quickly, before I want to start, I want to note that tear gas is banned in war, so I really can't fathom why it's allowed for use against protesters. But I've been attending Black Lives Matter protests in Albuquerque, but because of COVID, I wanted to see what progress could be made from home. So I did some research, and I found that APD does not require officers to exhaust all other means before shooting. And the data shows that departments who adopt this policy have 25% fewer police killings per capita, and that's pretty significant. Beyond that, there are countless articles and reports from the past few years that Albuquerque police officers are inadequately trained to address people with mental illness, which is a huge problem in Albuquerque. And clearly the use of force and the anti-racism trainings have been grossly insufficient. So APD needs to educate its officers and reallocate funds for more restorative means of policing. The thing is, after doing all that research, I didn't know who to reach out to. I don't know who has jurisdiction over issues like this. Is it City Council? Is it the Office of Human Rights? And for a city that values civic engagement, this information is not publicly available. And if this board meeting didn't happen, I wouldn't feel like I had a platform. So we need to better incorporate community members in policy changing. So thank you for holding this, and please keep us involved.
Thank you, Vera, for sharing that research that you've done. And if you, I would ask you to also email that to us as well. And I thank you for being involved. Thank you.
Up next, I have Regina Zuni. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now.
Good evening. I had wrote an email, and let me follow up with this. Back in March of 2015, a young man by the name of, I could be pronouncing it incorrectly, Jaquise Lewis was shot in the back at Los Altos Park by a known drug dealer who has an extensive criminal record. And first of all, let me say this. I'm not related to him or his family. I've never met the young man, but that murder resonated with me because I have two sons who are half American Indian and half African American. And I cannot help but feel, and they go to that park periodically, that they too are walking around with the target on their back, and absolutely nothing was done to properly investigate that. And subsequent to Lewis's murder, Buchanan went on to commit several crimes, and he runs around the city and operates with impunity. And why the police department repeatedly protects him, no charges, and in my mind, no actual investigation was ever performed to determine the facts surrounding Mr. Lewis's murder. And so it's incumbent upon not only Mayor, because he gets on the soapbox claiming that he loves Black lives and he's looking to reduce police brutality and the way people of color are targeted, but yet it's just lip service, because in the past, other mayors have formed task forces involving Native American, indigenous population. Nothing ever results except paper. This has got to stop, and I'm interested in sitting on that board. And I spoke to the admin assistant earlier, and I understand you people are doing what you think you can, but if you're
10
not—
seconds.
I'm sorry. If you're not actually willing to roll up your sleeves and do the work that's required so that people can respect this board, the mayor, and begin to forming some type of respect or relationship with the police, then it's all for nothing. It's all for nothing. And, you know, right now, and I understand, and let me say this in closing, I can understand completely the civil unrest that's going on nationwide, worldwide, because we are absolutely fed up with people of color being marginalized and killed by those in positions of trust and those who are supposed to be protecting and serving us. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina, for your comments.
Up next, I have Miss Bev McMillan. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now.
Krista, you forgot about Laura.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Oh, this is Bev McMillan. I would just challenge everyone on this call as I was watching through the weekend to make sure that we're getting people registered to vote. Someone just made the comment, it's not enough to vote, but that is an initial step. One begats the other. So I would ask everyone in your power, get people to vote. Go to your registrars, go downtown. There's a way for you to register online. I'll send that information out to you. I have a QR code that I can send you that you can immediately register across the enterprise. But let's get people registered to vote. Because what surfaced in my head all weekend for anyone that was protesting peacefully or unpeacefully, how many of the individuals in those crowds were registered voters? Now, I'm not trying to shame anyone because everybody has echoed this. We are tired. This has to stop. So I understand the output and the emotional output. I get it. But let's take the step of registering to vote, and we can make a change here in the state of New Mexico as well as the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Bev.
Next up, I have Courtney Montoya.
Hi, I'm Courtney Montoya. I'm with Millions for Prisoners New Mexico. I would like to begin by honoring the lives of two men, George Floyd and Vicente Villela. George was publicly lynched in broad daylight by Minneapolis police, and Vicente died in MDC in February of 2019. Both men pleaded for their lives, stating, "I can't breathe," a phrase that has become so iconic that it will shape our path towards civil rights for decades to come. Both men died due to mechanical asphyxiation as the result of restraint by people in uniform, both men of color and both taken away from their families far too soon. An exponential loss of human potential. I worked at NMCD for a short period of time as a librarian at the Penitentiary of New Mexico, and the culture of violence and level of dehumanization I witnessed on our Black and brown citizens will forever haunt my memory. I will never forget the medical neglect and violence openly enacted on human beings under the guise of rehabilitation, and it activated a sense of duty to shed light on injustice and to honor the humanity of those impacted, because incarceration is violence. I'd like to draw attention to the Black Lives Matter protests in Albuquerque. I want to know what the justification was in calling a militaristic response and what criteria were used to elicit that kind of response. And if that's been applied to other protests. I also suspect it had to do with the socioeconomic disparities and ethnic background of the folks enacting their First Amendment right to assemble. The use of force employed by militarized police exacting harm on our community members will never be forgotten by the people of New Mexico. I am personally harmed by the violence enacted on my chosen family member, Celinda Guerrero. Celinda tirelessly advocates for human rights and justice, and she gives every part of herself to the service of others. She was shot from half a mile with rubber bullet in the leg, and another woman was directly
10 seconds.
Sustained multiple injuries. I would just like to uplift that Celinda and her family work with Fight for Our Lives to feed our community and is not safe. And prisons and jails are no place to be during this global health crisis, and our people are safer when they're at home with our families. It's unconscionable that we saw the level of violence by police, and I want to see a change in our community where we can all live in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Next, I have Cheryl Bryan. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now.
I don't have a comment per se. I just had some questions. I'm a psychologist, and so my first thought is, what is happening on the front end when we are hiring police? What kind of assessments are being administered? Are we looking for bias? And so that was, my question was more about what are we doing versus having a comment about what's going on. I think everyone here has felt a lot of pain in regard to not only this incident, but many incidents in the past, which is clearly shown here. But I'd like to know, what are we going to do? What action can be taken to reduce this? I yield.
Yes, thank you, Cheryl, for raising those important questions that you have. And I did see, your public comment that was sent in earlier, and that's something that we're interested in knowing as well. So please know that it's something that we've noted and that we will look into. And we will, one of the items on the agenda, we will be discussing next steps that we'll be taking as a human rights board. So please rest assured that that's definitely something that we're going to talk about after public comment. So thank you.
Next up, I have Sarah Roybal. She also sent in an email today. I'm not finding her in the chats. Lane Looper. Melinda Merriam. Joseph Ray. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, thank you. Joseph Ray, representing Native people with disabilities and elders. Just again, wanted to thank the commission for having this hearing, especially in the light of all the protests and the actions taken by officials to keep everyone in compliance and keep everyone in line. But again, I wanted to just stand up on behalf of people with disabilities, not only Native people, but all persons of all races, persons with disabilities, especially again, as always, as we see so much in the news, persons with mental health issues, their lives should not be discounted. There was a recent move by hospitals to rank put elders and persons with disabilities low on the priority list as far as receiving their health care. And I collaborated with the Native American Disability Law Center out of Farmington to create a position paper regarding the fact that Indian Health Service should not discount the quality of life of Native people with disabilities. So again, I wanted to say, again, I'm thankful for the actions taken by the commission, and that I plan to participate in commission meetings as a public viewer. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph, for your comments. And we definitely encourage the public to please join us for our meetings there. All of the meetings of the Human Rights Board are public meetings. And so I definitely encourage that. Thank you.
Up next, Jim Harvey. I'm going to unmute you now. You're on mute, sir.
There. I'm Jim Harvey. I'm the executive director of the Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice. And I sent my comments in earlier today, but before I make reference to those, let me just also point out that I'm glad that the Oversight Board is going to be meeting next week, and I'm going to try and join that meeting as well, because one of the things that I'm concerned about is that there are currently 169
Mr. Harvey, it looks like we may have lost you.
down and do its work and get these things done. With reference to the comments I sent in earlier today, I had the opportunity to view a video that was taken 2 nights ago at UNM, where a police officer was engaged in a conversation with some armed vigilantes on the UNM property. And instead of sending them away, what they did was they just had a conversation with them and left them there. So I'm concerned now, are we at a point where the police department is engaging armed civilians as part of the response to the demonstrations, or just what's going on here? I think that those police officers need to be held accountable, and I'd like to see some action on that issue. Thank you.
Jim, before you leave, can you just,
Yes.
you omitted the first 40 seconds real fast. Make the point. You were frozen.
Oh, was I frozen? Ouch. Okay. So the police department, police officers were engaging armed civilians on the campus of UNM 2 nights ago. Armed civilians. They had no business there. The police should have been sending them away, telling them they can't be there. And I'm concerned now, is the police department engaging armed civilians to be a part of their response to the demonstrations that are taking place? This is pretty frightening stuff. And so I hope that the department will look into it. I hope that the HRB will look into it. And let's come up with some answers, because this is totally unacceptable and extremely dangerous. And I hope you heard my comments earlier about the 169 unreported cases of excessive force in the police department and the 29 officer-involved shootings. These things have to be handled. And if we're going to ever have any faith in our police department, we need to see some action. Thank you.
Mr. Harvey, can you please repeat those numbers again?
169 cases of excessive force and 29 officer-involved shootings. None of those have been referred to the CPOA, and none of them have been sent to the district attorney's office for any follow-up.
Do you know within what time frame? Are we talking about 2020, 2019?
2019 and into 2020, right.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Harvey. And your comments also regarding, the incident with APD speaking to armed persons has been brought to our attention as well by email and phone call. And I'm sure it's going to be discussed again during public comment tonight. So thank you again for your work and for being here with us. We appreciate
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Next, I have Miss Kelly Garcia. I'm going to unmute you now.
Crystal, I'm not seeing her show up on our screen.
I have her on screen, but I can't
Oh,
seem
on
to
a second.
unmute her.
Okay. I see that.
Crystal, I'm trying also, and this is Maria. I can't do it.
I see it unmuted now. Kelly, can you hear us?
Yes. I'm Kelly Garcia with the ACLU New Mexico. I'm the volunteer coordinator. I have seen these peaceful protests on live stream, and what's concerning to me is that APD is coming full force in riot gear, and they're trying to stop something peaceful with violence. And like what I'm asking is that APD get defunded, because with all those toys and all that ammunition, like they were gassing people, hitting people with rubber bullets. It's on video. It's on my Facebook. I shared it, and like they were shooting people with rubber bullets, with beanbags, with whatever they can stop people from exercising their First Amendment right. And that's not right. They're taking away from the Constitution. And so, I'm not going to be long, but I'm asking that you guys defund APD. And I'm not going to take no more of your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, for your comments.
It's with the Civil Rights City Council.
Up next, I have Jennifer Lim. I'm gonna go ahead and unmute you now. Where did she...
I think she only wanted to send in an email comment and not speak.
Okay. Up next, I have Martin. Sorry. Rozola. Michelle, is this your friend? I saw him earlier with his hand up. I am not finding him now.
Before you go on, Crystal, let me just remind any of the attendees that are waiting to be called that if for some reason you're not able to stay in this meeting with us, please be sure that if you haven't already, that you can type in your public comment in the Q&A that you see at the, in the screen towards the bottom. So you can type it in there. And you can also send your comments to us via email as well. So please, anyone who cannot stay, please be sure to send us your comments in those ways. And I actually encourage those of you who have spoken, if you included any links or recommendations, you're citing research or articles, please be sure to send them to us and just address it to the Human Rights Board.
Up next, we have Miss Tanya Covington. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now.
Didn't want to make a comment. I'm on here in the hopes that between the city and the protesters and the police, that we can find a way to sit down and use a restorative justice process to get all of this worked out. That's all.
Tanya, can you take a quick minute and just share just a little bit about what you do with the city? That's an important piece.
I'm doing restorative justice, which is a way of having people sit down and talk things out, similar to the Truth and Reconciliation that went on in South Africa and other places, so that people can hear each other and be able to talk to each other and work things out so that we all become a better and a more viable community together.
Tanya, for your work.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Up next, I have Miss Nima Pickett. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I first wanted to say thank you for arranging this time for us to be heard. I've been a New Mexico business owner for 21 years, between having my vegan restaurant and additionally a salon and day spa. And I am the mother of one daughter who's 21 and is a student at UNM. I have spent time over the last week meeting with young African American students, community members who are very concerned about how we have a collective meeting of the minds to be able to go forward in a positive direction. And that many of the things that we're talking about today and over time are conversations that we've been having for the last 25 years that I certainly know of, and that they feel as well. I would definitely like to see partnering with the police department with young African American youth in terms of creating mentorship opportunities for them, and guidance and support into teaching what the best engagement should be when we see things that are acts that are definitely against our community, and that the police department is also held accountable in offering training and support to peaceful protesting and being a part of what that engagement actually looks like, and educating the community from the perspective of what is seen as non-threatening, quote unquote. And I just really am outraged at, how we are continued to be treated, how young Black males are profiled. I have two brothers, and this has constantly been a challenge of being harassed, and they are very amazing human beings, and this needs to stop. I've shed many tears. I feel like I'm holding back a river of them right now in this very moment. And speaking with people in other cities that are going through the tragedy, of what racism has created in this country.
10 seconds.
Is just unacceptable. And we need to create safe spaces to be able to heal from what has happened to our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Nima, for your comments.
Up next, I have Miss Rosemary Blanchard.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Hi, I'm Rosemary Blanchard, and I'm speaking here as a resident and citizen of Albuquerque, but also as the Southwest Regional Representative for Human Rights Educators USA, which is an organization I'll tell you about on another time. Some of you know me because I have spoken before the Human Rights Board before and have met with you on the subject of the powers of the Human Rights Board. And that's actually what my comments will be today. I know you're going to discuss what you can do, but I want to make a statement as a member of the community and as somebody who was once the paid attorney for the Montana Human Rights Commission, who worked under the Department of Labor of the state of Montana, but worked for the Human Rights Commission. And they were the ones who could tell me what to do. And they were the ones who could tell me when to cut it out. And I don't think you have anybody in that position working full time for you. What I learned in Montana is that a volunteer civilian board or commission can be given all kinds of powers, but if they are not staffed, unless they are independently wealthy, if we had Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, et cetera, on the Human Rights Board, I dare say they could get somebody to look into things on their behalf. But you can't. You have day jobs. And you need what my Human Rights Commission in Montana had, which is a staff. And a staff that answers to you, not to the mayor's office, not even Michelle, as much as I love you, not even to you. They need to answer to Veremia as the chair or president of the Human Rights Board.
10 seconds.
And there's actually provision for that in your ordinance, that you should have your own staff. And I don't think the police commission, the oversight commission, they have it. Why do you not? Why do you not have the means that you need to do your job if the city means what it says about human rights? And I will send written comments too, but that's enough for now.
Thank you, Rosemary, for your comments and for bringing that up. And I've read the Human Rights Board ordinance multiple times, and I agree with you. I see that clearly under 11-3-10, that the chief administrative officer shall employ, after consultation with the Human Rights Board, a staff director and hire or cause to be hired such other employees for the board they may deem necessary. So the staff director may, at the discretion of the board, in addition to the duties described. And so that is clearly in our ordinance, and it's something that we all plan to bring up as well, of this, this specific thing that you are mentioning, and it's a very important point. So thank you.
Up next, I have Cassandra Lujan, who I can't seem to find in our participants. I have Chelsea Caban, I believe is how you say it. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to talk fast because I have quite a bit that I want to say. But first, I feel that we need to demand public acknowledgement from Albuquerque Police Department for the grievances that we're listing surrounding the protest and issues in our community, and have our police department set a public example for police departments across the United States. On social media websites, I've seen hundreds of accounts of unwarranted police brutality that will almost certainly not be addressed in almost any of those instances. One grievance includes Daily Lobo reporter Andrew Gunn having police point guns within close range at him for reporting the protests on Thursday night, even after he stated that he was a member of the press, the police replied that they don't care and pointed a gun at him and forced him to leave. And this is on video. Silencing the media is a threat to our safety and our democracy. We also need a task force with funding to investigate implementing ideas for reforms, and it needs to be created now after these protests. Some reforms need to include more extensive background checks for police beyond just provided references. We need investigations into service members' social media to ensure that they don't include racist, homophobic, and misogynistic sentiments. I personally attended a party where I witnessed white people bragging about how one of their fathers was going to write a recommendation for the police academy to a person that they all laughed about having anger issues. And if that person kills someone one day, it's their fault. So things like that need to change. We also should investigate the idea of implicit bias screenings. As someone formerly said, I also have a degree in psychology, and one thing that I think is important to know when investigating those resources
10 seconds.
Is that other variables are important beyond just implicit bias, because almost everyone in society has implicit bias. And there should also be a call for no openly spraying projectiles at crowds. Every bullet shot needs to be publicly accounted for, who pulled the trigger and who was on the receiving end and for why. Not spraying into crowds of innocent protesters. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And I want to remind everyone that aside from providing public comment tonight, whether you're doing that verbally or through the Q&A or sending it by email, that under the ordinance of the Human Rights Board, any person claiming to be aggrieved by an unlawful discriminatory practice can file a grievance with the Human Rights Board. And so that's something that everyone needs to be aware of as well, that grievances can be filed. So I encourage those of you who want to do that, that you send us a letter addressed to the board as well. So thank you.
Can I have Grace Eric?
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
So I sent in my comments via email today, so I won't dwell too much on them right now, but I just wanted to, oh, sorry, I'm pulling on my email right now. One sec. Okay, I just wanted, so my name is Grace Eric, I'm 21, I'm from City Council District 6, and I just wanted to call attention and talk about the arrest of Clifton White, one of the organizers from the May 28th Black Lives Matter protest, and ask what the Human Rights Board is currently doing and how we can advocate on his behalf and fight for his release. And then I also want to talk a little bit to echo what other people are talking about, the APD funding. As we know, that APD is #1 in fatal shootings and has been for multiple years in a row. And I was looking at our 2018 budget. That was the most current budget I could find, but I was comparing that to their highest budget approval, which was $176,000, to the civilian police oversight budget, which was less than $900, and comparing those two numbers and just asking maybe a little bit of what we can do to defund APD and to invest in other community projects and to holding them accountable. Thank you.
Grace, can you please repeat those numbers that you shared right now?
Yeah, of course. So I pulled them from the city website, and in 2018, let me add the link. In 2018, the APD was approved for $176,000, 519, sorry. And then the Civilian Police Oversight Committee was on the lower end, one of the lower ones, and it was $860. Let me add that link to the chat right now. And that's where, that was the source for my numbers.
Great. Thank you very much, Grace,
Thank
for
you
your
so much.
comments and for sharing that.
So we have completed our first round of calling people. I can go through and recall names.
You know, at this point, Crystal, it's been asked by one of our board members if we can take a short break at this point before moving on with public comment. So we'll have a short break now of 10 minutes, if that's agreeable with the rest of the board. Okay, so we'll be taking a 10-minute break. Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you.
Member Jefferson to join us again, and then we'll be on.
By the way, I said Lara Christopherson. I don't know, it was Laura Christensen. Sorry about that. When I noticed that, I wasn't bothering you, Crystal.
Oh, I couldn't figure out what you meant when you said I
Yeah,
forgot,
no,
Laura. I was like,
Mine is Laura Christopherson. So it's like, shit, I look stupid, but oh well, I think.
I heard it. It's okay.
I'm just glad I didn't forget anybody.
She was fresh in my mind because she was part of the vigil, so.
Crystal, I'm wondering if we continue. Yes, there's Member Jefferson. So yes, so thank you. We'll continue with public comment now.
Okay. Up next, I have Devontae Watson.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'm so new to this. Okay, well, one, thank you, Human Rights Board, and thank you for allowing this time for public comment for the community, and also to all of those in the community who have come to gather in this conversation. I'm coming to with a real issue that I'm finding a trend of, and in the discussion of Black Lives Matter, I'm finding this more and more of a trend regarding discrimination in housing. As we know, there are policies and procedures that allow for the protection of people to remain and to remain at a place of occupancy and to be protected with respect to age, sex, so on and so forth, intersectionality. As one thing that I'm finding unfortunately happening is if there are people placed in a roommate situation and there's an encounter, a racial encounter, they are not covered by any type of discrimination policy because it's apparently a civil suit of some kind. But in the circumstances that I've experienced and have witnessed in the community is that African Americans and people of color have been forced to leave due to racial tension in a household where that's present. So one, I have a two-part kind of question for the board. What responses can be done and taken of such grievance process? And I'm sure you've talked about that prior to or during this discussion. What type of outlets can be filed in that circumstance? And then secondly, what policies do exist regarding housing discrimination? And in that circumstance, how can we move forward to consider strengthening that in this circumstance, because it's an indirect way of expressing racism when people have to leave a house due to circumstances within the household, but not necessarily with the landlord.
Thank you, Devontae, for sharing that. And I actually want to call in Tori, the Office of Civil Rights Attorney, who much of her work is connected to housing discrimination. If you wanted to say anything in regards to that, Tori. Yeah, we're not able to hear Tori, although I see that she's unmuted. But Devontae, I really encourage you to send your questions to us, and we'll connect specifically with Tori to talk about those important issues that you raise.
Okay,
That
thank
is
you.
something that is brought up in our,
Virginia, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Go ahead, Tori.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I don't know what was wrong on my end. The Human Rights Ordinance for the City of Albuquerque prohibits discrimination based on race, gender, religion, national origin, and several other protected classes in housing. There is similar state and federal prohibitions on discrimination in housing. I think it's really important to note that all negative behavior in housing may not rise to the level of discrimination, but it may still be illegal and it may be protected under the New Mexico Landlord-Tenant Act. So if people have questions regarding housing discrimination, I urge them to contact the Office of Civil Rights at civilrights@cabq.gov, and we can talk through the options. Thank you, Devontae, for raising that question.
Thank you.
So I received a text that we actually do have another person, and it's Patrick Barrett, but he is using a different name. So I'm going to go ahead and allow him to speak now.
Good afternoon. My name is Patrick Barrett, and I'm a Black man that live in an international district. So
Patrick, you're cutting in and out.
Yeah, we're so sorry to interrupt you, Patrick, during your comments, but yeah, you're cutting out. Let's try again.
Okay. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
So what I was saying earlier is that if you really want to help the Black community out, I like to recommend a couple organizations that you can help out. One I like to highlight is the New Mexico Black Mental Health Coalition, and they're doing a lot of work in the international district. And I think this organization is vital during this crucial time. Dr. MacGyver and her crew's been working with families along with young people, helping them process what's really happening, right? How to really work with young people through this ordeal. The next organization I like to tell people about is that we have a new school that's about to open called Access Academy. And, you know, this is the first year and the principal is going to need a lot of help. And so if you really want to be involved, I implore you to please support some of these organizations, because I really do believe in building Black institutions. And this is one way that we feel you all can be of great help.
Patrick, can you repeat the name of the school and who's the principal?
Yes, the principal is named Jerron Campbell, and the name of the school is, I'm gonna spell it out for you. It's ACES Charter School. So it's actually a STEM school for young people of color. And what I can do is I can put it in the chat as well.
Yes, we'd appreciate that, Patrick, if you can add that. And I'm not sure if you were done with your public comment.
I am done. I just ask everybody that for your assistance.
You're muted, Patrick.
So I was saying, we really want you all to really support these Black institutions before we can help these young people.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I have completed the list of people who signed up with me. I searched for them in the chat search. Do you want me to call their names one more time?
Why don't we move on to the people who've raised their hands? And I'm seeing on my end that I think we have 8 people with their hands raised.
Yes.
And I'm seeing here in the chat that a message from Celinda Guerrero saying that she had signed up. I'm not sure if she's one of the people that you had been searching for.
Yes. Go ahead, Ms. Guerrero.
Hello, thank you so much for holding this hearing tonight. My name is Celinda Guerrero. I'm a Black Lives Matter organizer. I organized the first action that happened on Thursday night, and my family is directly impacted by police violence this week in many different ways. We intervened at the site on Thursday evening with the young people where there was an overuse of force against 2 16-year-olds and 2 18-year-olds who were taken in a tank by APD. They were beaten. The 16-year-old told me that his face was slammed into a wall. They were denied access to call their parents. Their phones and their money were taken from them. And then they were in front of them. APD did rock, paper, scissors on who was going to dump them off. And at 3:30 in the morning, each of the 4 children were dumped individually, miles apart from each other across the war zone. One of the young people was so injured that he was laying in the street, and a community member called the fire department for him. They helped him get back to his sister. Another one of the young people had to walk for miles, for hours, to get to a home that he knew somebody before he was able to get help. These are the 4 young men that APD targeted that evening after the Black Lives Matter action. They were driving down Central, and APD, they said, attacked them at Mesilla and Central. 12 unmarked police cars pulled behind them, and the APD tank in front of them on the dark street of Mesilla on the north side of Central. This is where we came to action that evening. There was a dramatic overuse of force that evening. We were gassed. The tanks were there. APD came out in full fatigues as if they were in a war zone in Afghanistan. Why is APD at war with its community?
10
Why?
seconds.
This is crazy. They shot me a half a block away from their police line on Monday morning, after Sunday evening's protest. My entire thigh is covered in bruises right now from the rubber bullet I took half a block away from the police line. My phone was stolen the evening that they attacked the kids. My phone was stolen. I called APD dispatch, and there is no record of the police stop where they stole my phone. I can't even recover my own property. My husband came home from prison in September. We saved up money to buy that brand new phone that we only had for less than 2 weeks, and my phone is gone. My husband was illegally detained, and he was rode around the block in handcuffs and threatened, while APD stole the children's car from us after they left it at the scene unprotected. The things that APD has done are horrific to our community. Right now, this morning, parking enforcement was on my street on Wellesley, harassing people on my block. Why is parking enforcement in a neighborhood? Why are they in my neighborhood right now? Why was a parking enforcement person in a bulletproof vest on Cole and Wellesley today? Why were they here harassing my neighbors? The force, the heavy boot of APD is on my neck right now for me and my family. Every day, my son went to go visit his friend today, and he rode in a car with somebody, and undercover cops in a white truck followed them from my home. My kids aren't even safe to visit their friends right now because of the harassment and interrogation of APD and state police. We are actively monitored. The police helicopter is over my house every day, all day, surveilling us. Who is paying for that? Why aren't they accountable for how much time they're spending in the sky and who they're surveilling? Why every time I drive out of my driveway am I being followed by 6 undercover units? The very same tactical unit that attacked the children that night is the same one that arrested my husband on Monday evening. And they didn't even have a warrant when they arrested him. When he got to MDC, the booking clerk said there was nothing in the system for him. They couldn't even book him. They designated him STG red and locked him down in the hole. Those same cops came back there and manufactured a warrant, handwritten at MDC to book him. Now DOC has gotten involved because they understood that the warrant was fabricated, and now they're trying to cover it up. I got word yesterday that they were manufacturing yet another warrant and backdating it. The level of corruption that is happening. These are not new police tactics against my community. These things happen every day to us, every single day in our neighborhood, and it must stop.
Thank you, Celinda. Thank you for sharing that information with us. And I would really encourage you to please have all of the young people that were involved, including yourself and any other member of the public that was present, to please send us these details. And again, I'll repeat to the public who's in attendance that not only are you able to send us your public comments during this meeting that we're having, but you can also send a grievance addressed to the Human Rights Board. And it's important that we have all of that information that is being shared. And I especially as a longtime educator, am very concerned. And I want to hear the details about the young people and their experiences on that Thursday night protest. So thank you again, Celinda, for sharing.
Is she still on the phone?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much for hearing me.
I don't mean to take up enough space, but if you could just elaborate a little on how you got shot. If you could just tell me a little about that, or tell us.
Yes, on Sunday evening, we were just monitoring from home, and we saw that there was a young group of young brown kids who were still resisting in the street at about 1 o'clock in the morning downtown. And we could see the way overuse of police. There was tanks, there was a SWAT team. They were way outnumbered. So we made a decision to go down and cop watch because we're trained in cop watch for our community because we are trying to protect ourselves out here. We commit hours and hours and hours of training our community to help defend against our own oppression. We went down there to go cop watch. And when we arrived, the young people, when I saw them, they were kids from my community. They were kids I know. They're kids who have been in my home, kids who go to school with my kids. Most of them were like 16 and 17-year-olds, all Chicano kids, all down there still resisting. And so we joined them to support them. And APD stood in a line across 4th Street, facing westbound Central towards the chemo. And that block, they were shooting us from half a block down. Those rubber bullet guns have a green light on them. And you could just see yourself light up, and then they would pick us off like a video game. They were shooting us from half a block down, like a video game, picking us off. and they continued to charge at the kids with batons. The kids were trying to show that they were peacefully protesting. The children, it's on video on my newsfeed. If anybody wants to go to my Facebook, Celinda Guerrero on Facebook. The children laid across the intersection on their bellies with their hands on their head, and they started chanting, "I can't breathe." All the young people in a row. The SWAT did not stop. They continued to charge the young people who were laying down on the ground with their hands on their heads. They continued to charge them. So I stood in front of them and asked them to stop. They would not stop. I tried to get the young people to get up. And by the time the young people got up, they started to push them with the batons and hit them and threaten them. They threw some of the boys to the ground. Just west of 6th Street, they had the boys on the ground over them with batons, and I was trying to help the young girls who got pushed on the sidewalk. And I was yelling to them, "They're dispersed. We are standing on the sidewalk. They are not in the street. They are not protesting. They are not harming anything. They have a right to stand on the sidewalk. Why are you doing this to them?" And the officers proceeded to try to attack them with the batons, to the point that the 2 young girls got on their knees and told them, "Please stop. What, you want to hit me?" They were saying, "Why do you want to hit me?" 17, 8-year-old girls on their knees, yelling to riot police, "Why do you want to hit me?" They were on the sidewalk. They had dispersed, and they would not stop pushing them. We got all the kids out of there finally that night. This should never happen. We have a right to our sidewalks, and our children have a right to be heard. They were out there because they are hurting. Our children in our community are hurting. During the last year's sting operations, the kids in my community in the southeast of Albuquerque were being fingerprinted walking home from school. What kind of a society do we live in, where people are pulled over 3 times going to the grocery store, 2 times on the way there and 1 time on the way back? In the southeast of Albuquerque, my friend Paula's neighbor, she lost her home healthcare provider because the nurse who would come to care for her got harassed so much by police just by virtue of driving in the neighborhood that she wouldn't come anymore. And the agency has not been able to get anybody else to come. Our neighborhood is under attack, and I don't know what else to do. I have organized everybody. And because I have organized to defend my community, now the full weight of APD is on my neck. And they have broken up my family, and they have stolen my husband.
So Linda, again, I thank you. Again, I know how hard that is for you to, what you're going through. And I thank you for sharing that information. And I'm not sure if you were on when it was shared earlier that we're also encouraging the public that, along with submitting this information to the Human Rights Board, to please also send that information to the Civilian Police Oversight Agency. And that has been shared, I think, in the chat. And we were informed that they will be having a meeting. I believe it's June 11th, that's when the meeting will be. I don't think the official agenda has been posted yet, but that is another place to please file and please share this information. And I want to tell you personally, me as the chair and on behalf of the other members, that we're hearing every one of you make these public comments, and that we're being very mindful and of everything that's being shared with us. So again, I thank you and everybody else too that has shared public comments so far. And please, please encourage the young people that were involved as well to be in contact with us with those details. That's very important for us to receive that information as well. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing me tonight.
Thank you, Celinda.
Crystal, I'm not sure if you were finding the next person, or if we're going to, I think, to the hand raise function on Zoom to call the remaining people that are providing public comment.
I believe we can go to the hand raising.
Okay, so if you can please do that. And yes, so let's move on to that. Thank you, Crystal.
I have unmuted and I'm only catching half of it because of the functions. Let's see. And
did you unmute me?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that was
Sorry.
correct. My name is Adastos de Silva. And so really quick, before I want to go in, I just kind of want to just like thank everybody that's been on the call, everybody that has spoken, especially Celinda, because, right, APD has been seen to target members of our community. And as a person of color, we see this every single day, right? And now it's like a targeted attack against the organizers that have been organizing these protests. And I know a lot of people on this call from the work that I have done. You know, I have worked on various campaigns, political campaigns, throughout my life. And I've, you know, thought that the work had been needing to be done through electing representatives that had, you know, represented their communities. But a lot of things that I have noticed and I have witnessed these past few days, especially not just going on about like things that I've experienced within, you know, the past year or so, right? Or even before that, is that we're being absolutely just systematically targeted by police violence. And the most recent one for me was due to not only my skin color, but also my sexual orientation, right? And I think it's really awful, just like we have to relive our trauma of police violence and the brutalization of our communities, just so that way the city, APD, or just anybody in general can listen to us. And I think, you know, in general, this conversation has been just a very just kind of closed and very narrow. And I think there are just a couple of things that people just really need to recognize from the people on the ground, which is one, like telling us one that we can do better, or have it, or, you know, what Tim Keller did with having, you know, saying that people of color that need to have personal responsibility or to dismantle racism. In one of his live streams, he had, I believe, the director of equality and inclusion say that. And so for us, right, that's like frankly disgusting and offensive, because it's saying that we need to do the work when you're the ones that need to do the right work. When you say that we can do better, in my mind, all I hear is that you need to do better. APD needs to do better. The city needs to be better, and have a plan on how to do that, right? And don't project
10 seconds.
That like systematic racism towards us. So because of time, I'll just say the last part, which for me is really just thinking about the overall brutalization and the escalation of violence that has happened the past few days, especially the event that happened on Friday, right? Where everybody said that it was a riot, like people were causing chaos. And I was down there documenting with my camera because I felt like it was my duty to make sure that we had documentation of the events that were actually happening. And there were 5 people that were white who were breaking into windows, right? And they pulled out trash cans and threw it out into the street. We all know this, right? But the point is, the throwing in the chairs and the trash can and setting on fire resulted in 20 horses, a tank, over hundreds of SWAT teams, people in military gear snipers on the roof, right? Thinking about how much that is such an overreaction, and it's become to the point where the police are now viewed, or have been viewed, excuse me, as violence workers rather than being there to serve and protect the community. And I think it's just a huge necessity to realize that it is the city's work and it is the city's responsibility to move forward on having huge monumental change, and saying that we just need to vote isn't going to do it. We can't wait that long. We're dying. We can't breathe. You need to do the work now. Thank y'all.
Thank you very much for your comments.
I'm going to go to Miss Monique S. next.
Hi, Monique Salhab, Iraq War veteran. Just 3 things. One, the Office of Equity and Inclusion was created by Mayor Keller when he came into office. And the success of the Office of Equity and Inclusion is inextricably linked to the success of the mayor. And as the previous individual mentioned, the mayor chooses to continue to use language which makes it the issue, the problem, the responsibility of BIPOC communities to do the work. I would like to know, has the mayor even attempted to personally attend any of the trainings that the Office of Equity and Inclusion has organized and put forth? Secondly, how does the Human Rights Commission plan to hold Mayor Keller, a white-bodied leader, accountable to actually doing the work and not just speaking rhetoric, examining his own white fragility and patriarchy, and how he continues to support the continued suppression and oppression of BIPOC communities via APD? And thirdly, more of a comment, as a veteran, I think the language that we continue to use around police, they are not police, they are military state. They are enforcers. Since 9/11, we have seen through our country police departments systematically equipped with military equipment, MRAPs in the streets, no matter what city you go in. And as many folks have commented, the gear that they wear, the clothing, these are not police departments. They are militarized departments. And I believe that our language needs to be updated as such in order to be able to further better hold these militarized departments accountable. And the language that, if we continue to adopt that kind of language, it shifts the way that we look at these so-called police departments.
10 seconds.
And I'll just end it there. Thank you. And I'm glad that Celinda was able to speak as well.
Thank you, Monique, for the different issues that you've raised. And it is our intention that once we've gone through public comment, we are going to discuss next steps tonight. So that is something that I assure you we are going to do. And I know that you asked a question specific about Mayor Keller attending any of the trainings provided by OEI. And I wanted to ask Michelle if she wanted to address that.
Hi, thank you, Chair Virginia. This is Michelle Melendez, and no, the mayor has not attended one of the OEI trainings that began this year. We got cut short a little bit because of COVID. So we had a year-long training series planned. We have gone to virtual trainings, but we can't do the deep anti-racism training virtually. Those are multi-day trainings, as you know. We have the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond on contract to provide those trainings, and we will resume them as soon as we are able. So far, the Planning Department and the Environmental Health Department have been through those trainings with us. We continue to have other culture change activities. That's what's gone online. So conversations, book clubs, community conversations.
to continue building the culture change that we need in between these trainings. I do know that the mayor has gone through other trainings before he became mayor, through the Aspen Institute and through the Kellogg Foundation. And so he is familiar with deep anti-racism work and has been through trainings, but not with this office yet. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Michelle.
Can I have Winfred Whiteman Jennings?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just want a couple action points that I would really like to see the committee take. I would like to see you recommend releasing Clifton White, who is Celinda Guerrero's husband. I am one of the people who Celinda has organized. She is amazing, and Clifton is amazing, and it really just kills me to see what is happening to that family right now. I would also like to see recommending redirecting some of the funding that we have for the police. We have a huge amount of funding that goes to APD in this city, and instead of putting it on the police to deal with homeless people, people with mental illness, people who are dealing with drug addiction, we could be spending that money to actually help those people instead of criminalizing them. And we could make our city safer for everyone by redirecting those funds. And if they still need money, then I suggest that what the police should do is sell off all of this military equipment that they have. They don't need tanks. They don't need all this SWAT gear. If they need the money, they should sell that stuff. I know we've talked a few times about the Civilian Police Oversight Council or whatever they're called. I have attended their meetings a couple of times, and I just, in general, find them to be extremely ineffective. If you look at how to sign up to volunteer on that board, it says if you have a history, if you've made complaints about APD before, you're not going to be invited to that board. And it seems to me that the people who would be most needed on that board are people who have experience, lived experience being criminalized by the police. I would actually like, thank you. I would actually like to see that board dissolved and reformed, and to include activists in the community, like Celinda. Thank you.
Winifred, can you mentioned information that might prevent people like activists or organizers from being on that agency. Can you please send that to me?
It's just if you go to the website for the Civilian Police Oversight Board, which has already been posted, where it says sign up to be on the board, it's like right at the top of that website.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Next, I have DL Phone.
That's me. My name is Denise Lynn, and I am a massage therapist. I was trained at the New Mexico School of Natural Therapeutics, and I'm also getting my PhD in clinical psychology. And I have been really deeply distressed by all the events that have transpired within the last few weeks, and then all of the COVID-19. And it's just really showed how racial inequality is such a problem and how it's devastating our communities. And I was just really feeling heartbroken and just devastated. And then I think it was Monday morning, I was watching the news and I saw Oklahoma police officers who were kneeling in solidarity with the protesters. And I saw a man the Minnesota sheriff. He took off all of his riot gear and he marched with the protesters. And I saw white women linking arms, and they used their bodies as a shield, a physical shield to protect protesters. And then there were protesters who even protected a cop when he got separated from his unit. And so I started thinking about how that was seeing those incidents, seeing how people were coming up for each other and kind of coming to assistance and recognizing everyone's humanity, like was really a balm to my soul. And I wanted to see if we could create a ritual of atonement and reconciliation for George Floyd in the state of New Mexico. And I wanted to know if all of the flags in the state could be put down to half mast from June 4th to June 9th in honor of his death, because his funeral services are going to be during those days. And then on Friday at noon, I wanted to know if we could perform taps on alto sax to honor George Floyd's life, because he was basically a soldier, living while Black on the front lines. And then also give him a 50-gun salute, and then have all of the police officers in New Mexico in their dress blues kneel for 8 minutes and 46 seconds during a moment of silence that lasts 8 minutes and 46 seconds to honor the life of George Floyd. And I know that just being still for a minute is a very long time. And so I think having them take a knee and stand there and take a knee for 8 minutes and 46 seconds would really kind of drive home the way that excessive violence or excessive brutality is, how visceral that is. And so I don't know how to get that, I don't know how to get a ritual like that created in the state. And so I wanted to see if I could get on this meeting and talk to the mayor, talk to the governor, talk to the police chief, and see if there's something that can be done to honor George Floyd in this way. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your ideas, and we'll be sure to talk about them in a possible some type of way to honor George Floyd, and also all the countless Black lives and other people of color who have been inhumanely and egregiously murdered and killed across our nation. So thank you.
Up next, we have Shane Fisher. Sean, I apologize.
Hello, thank you for holding this meeting. I'm Sean Fisher, a Black gay transplant from Washington, D.C. I've been in New Mexico for about 3 years now. In regards to the current events, I cannot find the words to express my anger and utter repulsion of the countless senseless deaths of Black people, LGBTQ plus individuals, and people of color. New Mexico needs to do better. I attended the George Floyd's candlelight vigil and was so appalled of the All Lives Matter rhetoric that I could only tolerate 40 minutes of the event. This is not the first event I've attended and had to leave for after a few minutes. I echo many Black individuals who, when I say I am tired of trying to teach, find solutions, attend these events only to come out with the short end of the stick. May I remind everyone that this is not a people of color issue. This is a systematic problem that provides those who are white with unfounded power. It is these individuals who need to find solutions on how not to be racist, fascist, bigots, etc. For 400 plus years, we've conformed, tolerated, protested, and pleaded for change to no avail. Quite frankly, I feel myself moving more towards a Marcus Garvey and Black Panther stance, that integration is the wrong approach. Whites will never allow us into their inner circle. It's time for y'all to step up and risk your lives to support us. Please prove me wrong. I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you for your words.
Next, I have David.
Yes, hello. Am I audible?
Yes, go ahead, David.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the time. First, I'll just say that while kind of demonstrations by APD might be powerful and might seem like a good photo op and might be temporarily reassuring to people, I've read far too many stories about officers kneeling in getting photo ops, and then later that were the same day, the same night, beating and gassing protesters. So I'm more interested in actual change to the police's behavior more so than any kind of performative action. But I just wanted to focus on the use of tear gas and rubber bullets. So tear gas was banned by the Geneva Convention in use in international war like 25 years ago. but we still use it here domestically against our own people. And to me, I remember reading in the press conference, the deputy police chief of APD, he was asked what was used on in the tear gas incident that occurred. And I believe it was Friday night, but I might be wrong about the specifics. And he said he didn't know what type of tear gas it was. And I find that so incredibly irresponsible. And I would just ask, why are we using tear gas against our own people? How is that ethical? What standards do we have in place that the police have to follow in order to use it? I mean, rubber bullets can kill. And I think the potency of that tear gas against our own people is exacerbated by the fact that we're also undergoing a pandemic that targets the respiratory systems of people. So I just wanted to ask that you press APD and the city to define really stringent standards for the use of tear gas and rubber bullets, because they are not as safe as they might seem to be. And again, they're banned in international war, but not domestically. How is that humane? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, David.
Next, I have Charlotte. I'm having a hard time unmuting you, Miss Charlotte. Maria, can you try and unmute Miss Charlotte? Please.
I'm trying to. Can we go to the next person and then go back to see if we can possibly unmute Charlotte after?
Okay. Myra Garcia.
Hello?
Yes,
go ahead. Okay, thank you. Hello, my name is Maya Garcia. I'm 18 years old. First, I want to say thank you for holding this incredible hearing to spearhead this conversation as the city of Albuquerque. And I want to voice my concerns against the actions taken by the city of Albuquerque and the state of New Mexico. As one of the leading states in diversity, it is vital that we spearhead the movement in checking the power that is allowing the police to enable murder and brutality. I also want to speak against how Mayor Tim Keller spoke at the vigil that preceded the peaceful protest that occurred Sunday evening. He continuously spoke over some of the younger people in the audience, and it seemed more of an attempt to save face than a genuine attempt to communicate with the public. So I would just like our public figures to be more transparent and speak against this issue. They can't just speak against the issue, they actually have to take action against this blatant systematic racism and send a message to the United States government that does not seem to be standing with the people at this moment. And just as, you know, with the history of New Mexico, as being one of the leading states in, you know, diverse groups of people, it is important that we stand in solidarity with our people. And I'd like to see that from both Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham and Mayor Tim Keller. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. It's been very, very moving to see so many young people involved in taking the lead in a lot of what we're witnessing across the nation. So thank you. We have, I think, like 3 people left for public comment, Crystal, from what I see. And
I'm showing 4.
Okay, so those are the last 4 people that we'll take for public comment. And then once we end that, we hear from those 4, then we'll have a short break, and then we're going to continue to the last items of our agenda.
Up next, I have Louis Fuller.
Hi,
I'm Lois.
Hi, I'm Lois Fuller. Can you hear me? I'm
Yes.
new. This is the first meeting I've been to, and I'm interested to know how many people are attending the meeting. Does anybody know? How many?
The numbers have changed over time, Lois. From the beginning of the meeting, I think we had at least like 250 people on.
Okay.
And as of right now, we have, I think it's a total of 152 people that are still on this call with us.
I just wanted to get a general ballpark. I'm interested also, when I joined the meeting, I had to put in my email address. So I'm hoping that that will mean that I will be kept apprised of further meetings and actions by this organization. That's the second thing. And the third thing was that I left this meeting to run over to what I thought was going to be a meeting of, let me see if I can find it here, the Southwest Area Command. I don't know if you're aware that the police have the city, drawn up in sections, and then supposedly there is to be a community outreach or connection or communication with the people in that specific community. And I live at 6th and Cole, so I was, from what I could tell, it was the Southwest section, and I drove over there and there was no one there. In the meantime, I had tried to call and I got no answer, and there wasn't a chance to leave a message. It was just, sorry, we're busy, call us back. I called several times. So anyway, it seems to me that is one aspect of the situation that could be strengthened. And I wonder if anybody else knows anything about the different, the different sections, different command, quote, I love that word, command sections. So that was the other thing that I wanted to say. And the other thing I wanted to say is that I posted, I can't find it here, but somewhere in the chat, I posted a link to what I consider to be absolutely the best article on policing in the US that I've ever read. And I would encourage us all to look at that and consider, it's just really remarkable, blow your mind. And then the other thing is, I'm interested to know, I'll wait and see what the committee wants to talk about, but I'm kind of hoping that maybe there will be a possibility for an Albuquerque protest relative to the police behavior at the recent protests. And that's what I have to say. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Lois, for your comments. And just a quick thing, you know, I would say please keep in the loop with the agendas that we post on our website for the Human Rights Board. They're all public meetings, so you know, be sure to stay informed by visiting our website and seeing the upcoming meetings. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Crystal, I'm showing on my end that there's one person with their hand raised, but I had also seen Dr. Jamal Martin was on that list as well.
Yeah, but he was next. I don't know what happened. That may have been my mistake trying to scroll across too fast.
Okay, so we have who's next then, Crystal?
I don't want to slaughter this name. Can I spell it? It's Xandi.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it's Sandy K. I just spelled it different. I am on this call because I think it's time that we have this dialogue, and I wanted to say that we have an event coming up on Saturday. We reached out to the city, we reached out to the governor, and we reached out to APD. We got really very little response about it, but what we are trying to do is unite our city the way the governor has led our state to be a leader in the COVID-19 situation. We want all of the voices together so that we can come together and reason this thing out. If we've led the COVID-19 pandemic issues with as much grace as we have, we should be able to do this as well. Between the brutality of what's going on with, you know, just the police in general and everything else around the country, people are scared, they're upset. All of that is going on. We know this. Personally, my stepfather was a police officer in Albuquerque, and he has a road named after him. And my mother died from his gun. It was ruled a suicide. My cousin Jay Murphy was shot by the APD in front of his daughter. And when I got there, she was in a paper jumpsuit. So when I tell you I have a history with police, I don't know what happened, but I do know that APD did not investigate the way they should have for my personal family situation. The persons who are running the event on Saturday, they just want to come together peacefully. They don't want to be hurt by the police. They don't want to be hurt by rogue people coming with guns and not turned away by the police. And we would really like for the city to show up. We would like the mayor to be there. We don't want to hear that the city doesn't want to know what's going on, because they do know what's going on. We want you there because we want the dialogue. We want you to hear the people's voices, not just mine. I've been doing this for 52 years. My dad was the president of the NAACP at one point. And growing up in Albuquerque and having my family here forever, we have seen some changes, but not enough. So we are asking politely, please show up. We don't want to protest. What we want is to come together to reason.
10 seconds.
I'm done. I yield my time. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you for sharing that. And I see one last person with their hand raised, and that's the last one that we'll take tonight. And that's Rodney Bowe.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for hosting this. One of the things I'd like to do is just give a maybe a resource that we could put together. Is we have, as a city, collected a number of videos that show the actions that have gone on. We might want to start a repository so we can present those when the time is necessary. So we can show those as evidence and use those as actually training modules as well. And that's all I'd like to say. And thank you for, again, putting this together. And thanks to all the people who have participated. They've done a great job in showing what trauma we've gone through and continue to go through. And hopefully we can come with a definite resolution. But I think it would be advantageous for us to come up with a repository to put all of these videos together.
Thank you, Rodney. That is definitely a very important thing that needs to be done. So thank you. And that concludes the public comment section for our special meeting this evening. And before we move on to the last items in our agenda, I'd like to call for a 10-minute break. So if the members of the board are in agreement, Michael, did you want to say something?
Oh, no. Yes, Madam Chairman, in the light of the lateness of the hour and the length of the public comments, I want to make a motion that we table the rest of the agenda until the July meeting.
So let me just address that. So it's been put on the table by Member Jefferson that because of the link today, for us to table the rest of the meeting until the July meeting. Is there a second for that before we move into discussion on that? Okay, seeing no second, I'm going to then ask for us to go into a 10-minute break, if that's okay with the rest of the board, before we move on to the final items on our agenda. So if you can just by your, yes, 10-minute break. Okay, so thank you. So we'll be on break for 10 minutes and we'll see everyone back at 7:28. Thank you. We're just waiting for a couple of our members to come back on with us. If maybe if you have your video off, but if you're there, can you just assure us that you're there as well? Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. So at this point in our meeting, I just again want to thank all the public who joined us today and to provide public comment. And now we're moving into the discussion by board members specific to the George Floyd Black Lives Matter protests that happened in our city. And there's been a lot of things that have been brought up by the public in regards to these protests, and specifically speaking to APD's response and actions towards the public and protesters. So at this moment, I wanted to open it up to the rest of the board members for us to discuss these incidents or address any of the public comments, the issues raised in public comment as well. So any board member, please feel free to share your thoughts at this point.
Very moving, heartrending to hear.
Samia, yeah, I can't, you're lagging.
Community, and it was an important.
Yeah, we're not able to hear you, Samia. So while we wait for Samia, if there's any other board member that would like to speak at this time. Samia, did you want to try again? No, you're still, there's the suggestion for you to try to call on your phone if you're still lagging. Yeah, Samia, so let's try one more time. Oh, no. So if you can try logging out and logging back in, Samia, maybe that'll work.
Well, now,
Let's see, keep talking. Okay, so we're going to give a moment for Samia to join us again, because I know she does want to express her thoughts. And again, if any of the other board members have anything they'd like to share at this point, or if Samia, you're back on, if you would like to share that, try sharing again.
Sorry, guys. I'm still myself.
Like, there's just from the public comment alone, there's, again, like I was saying right when we started this part, that there's so many different issues that were brought up and concerns by the public in regards to the protests that began in our community on Thursday, May 28th, and have continued since then. And so we're hearing multiple reports of excessive use of force, of this questioning of the use of tear gas on protesters, on rubber bullets that have been shot. And, and also from recently, this video clip that's been shared with many community members and the public that clearly shows APD officers engaged in a discussion with armed civilians on the campus of UNM. So those are just a few of the incidents that have been brought up by the public during public comment. And there's at this point, I'm not sure if Samia is back on, and you want to try again before we talk about next steps. Samia, you're muted, so if you can unmute, and let's see if we can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Has anybody chimed in yet?
No.
Oops. Like you all didn't have anything to have to say about all those voices in the city. That was heart-wrenching to hear. And I just feel like there's a lot more for us to understand and to learn. This is an important meeting that we held. So I'd like to know if anybody would like to make a motion for further action.
One of the things that has definitely been brought up, as a recommendation to the board, one of the suggestions is to hold a public forum to allow the community again to speak their concerns, but to also provide concrete suggestions and recommendations that they would like to see in regards, again, specifically in regards to the incidents connected to these protests in our city. So, with that recommendation, I'd like to bring it, in front of the board and ask if the board is interested in leading and collaborating with OEI and the Office of Civil Rights in hosting a forum and possibly other community organizations, because they're a very important piece of the Human Rights Board ordinance. It's for us to work with community organizations that also align with the work of the board. So is that something that the board would like for us to discuss as well? Not tonight, not the actual organizing or the details of the meeting, but it's definitely something that can be looked at in more detail by our outreach and education committee with the support of other human rights board members as well. So if you can please let me know what you think of that suggestion that's been brought forth to the board.
I'm starting again first. I agree with the forum, but I also feel a need that there should be an effort on our part to further investigate the incidents specific to the Black Lives Matter protests. So I want to see if anybody wants to move on that.
Yes, before we can introduce another motion, Samia, let's finish the discussion on the forum, and then you can introduce a new motion.
Thank you.
So can you let me know, the rest of the board, if we're interested in either supporting a forum to be held?
Hi, I'm definitely in support just first off, thank you to everyone that is still on the call, and thank you for everyone that has participated in the public comment. I am full of such an array of emotions based off of the testimonials and what everyone said, and I'm extremely moved, and I definitely would like to find out more information, but I would also love to move forward with action. Obviously, the city of Albuquerque, we need to do something, and our board we were put in this position to help make recommendations and to help that progress happen. And I strongly feel we need to do that. And whether it's actually having, Madam Chairman, having another foreman with more recommendations that way, or also I feel probably, I know our board, we're probably full of a lot of recommendations already, but I know I definitely am in support whatever the majority rules within that along those lines. But I just wanted to kind of offer that. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Shraddha?
Yeah, I also want to echo what Joan said, and thank you all for being here right now in this moment with us. I know it's been a long call. There's been a lot of emotions, a lot of grievances to be brought forth. I really think that we do need to step forward with action. This meeting was to listen to our community and to get that input, and I think there's very specific instances that we can highlight and that we can start pushing action towards. One of them being trying to I don't know what actions that we as a board can take collectively, but at least pushing out more folks in support of Clifton White and helping to find a way to get him released and make sure that he's safe. And I think that we also need to understand that what these distinctions are from these different protests that did happen, because there are still issues of them. We need to be able to support different organizers, and we need to make sure that these are safe places for our community to voice their emotions, to voice what kinds of issues they're seeing, and for us to then take that action forward and to ensure that APD or the state is not enforcing their violence onto these peaceful demonstrations. And regardless of that, they should not be antagonizing our communities. They should not be doing these things. So what kinds of policies can we advocate for? What kinds of discussions can we start within the city to advocate for that on behalf of our community?
Thank you, Shraddha. Any other board member wishing to speak specifically on that, on the forum idea? Douglas?
Yeah, I am in support of any kind of forum that we decide going forward. I also want to just echo sentiments that Shraddha said. As far as we are a very collaborative board, whether you're one person or an organization, if you would like to reach out and talk to us about maybe supporting something with you, or just working with us, or just attending board meetings, we want to be collaborative, and I think a forum would be a good way of entering into that.
Thank you, Douglas. Any other member want to speak to that? So, just from hearing the members who have spoken, I thought we can be in support if there's like the OEI, Office of Civil Rights, or possibly other community organizations hold a forum, that the Human Rights Board definitely can be in support and attend those, because we are hearing from members, and I also feel in agreement that we definitely need to move to action items. So that's something that is part of our ordinance. And with that, then I'm gonna end discussion on that, on that item. And I wanna go back to Samia, what you were voicing, which is very important, and that's for the Human Rights Board to further investigate all of the information that that's been shared with us tonight. And I just want to share with the other board members and the public that's in attendance, and this is part of our ordinance, the Human Rights Board ordinance. And I encourage the public to read the Human Rights Board ordinance. That is public information, but the board may hold hearings, and we can also hold investigations and studies with the aim of making recommendations to the city council and the mayor. And so with that, I want to return to you, Samia, for you to make the motion that you were originally making.
Virginia, if I may, Madam Chair, if I could, I'd like to hear from other members of the board about the suggestion, and maybe somebody else might want to make the motion or help me out here. I'd like to
Okay,
hear more voices.
before we do that, we need a second for the motion that you're making. And that, if I remember correctly, it was for the Human Rights Board to further investigate APD's actions, responses, and human relations in regards to the incidents that occurred with the Black Lives Matter George Floyd protests that happened in the city of Albuquerque.
Yes.
I'll second.
So Adrian has second. So now we can move to discussion. Any other board member wanting to discuss? Okay, seeing that there's no other member that wants to discuss this, then why don't we call the question? Okay, and the question is for the Human Rights Board of the City of Albuquerque to further investigate the APD's actions, responses, and human relations in regards to the incidents that occurred specifically at the George Floyd Black Lives Matter protests that occurred in our city. And those started on May 28th, continuing to even, I think it was Monday night, that was another incident that was raised. So that is the vote that we're calling. And so if the members in agreement can say aye.
Aye.
If I can do a roll call for this, please, so I can hear clearly. It's hard on online. So Douglas?
Aye.
Adrian?
Aye.
Joan?
Aye.
Shraddha?
Aye.
Mr. Jefferson?
Aye.
Okay, so, and I, also I'm in favor of that. So Samia, that motion has been approved unanimously by the Human Rights Board. And what I suggest, given that it has been a long evening for us, that we schedule a meeting to discuss what the details of that investigation will look like. And that way it gives us time to actually research what we need and detail out the process and procedure that we would need to follow to carry out that investigation. And actually, given that this is June, our next meeting is July. So why don't we we address that in our July meeting, so we can speak to the details of what that process will look like then. So is that, what does the board think? So in our July meeting.
Great.
Could you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, so we all voted in favor that the Human Rights Board is going to proceed with furthering an investigation regarding the incident. And I'm just asking that, since it's June, I was suggesting that we actually have that as an item in our July meeting. Or the other option is we can schedule another special meeting as well. So what do you think about a special meeting specifically to detail out the process, or we can also wait for our July meeting?
I would prefer a
Joan?
special meeting.
Okay.
I'm along with Samia. I think we should have a special meeting to help iron out the details. From now until then, to actually plan out something, there's too much lag time and too much could happen. And we really need to take action for the city of Albuquerque.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Joan. Mr. Jefferson?
Since we already have committees, and we got a committee that's for investigation and research, instead of having a special meeting, why don't we have that committee meet, then report back on July?
Let me go back to the recommendation that was made by the motion by Joan before we speak to that. And so the,
Did make a motion.
well, okay, so Joan suggested that we have a special meeting. Can you do that as a motion, Joan?
I would like to make a motion for a special meeting between now and our July meeting to further go into the details about these investigations regarding this matter.
Okay, and is there a second? In order to discuss, we have to have it. Okay, no second. So that there's no discussion.
I second.
Okay, if there's any discussion at this point. Okay, and with no discussion, so let's just call the question. So the motion is for us to hold a special meeting between now and our next board meeting in July to address the process of what this investigation will look like for the Human Rights Board. And so all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Douglas? Adrian? I'm doing roll call instead. I'm sorry. Clarification. I'm going to do a roll call because it's easier online. So Douglas?
Aye.
Adrian?
Wasn't the point of discussion about the committee thing though?
No, we had, well, I wanted to clarify Joan's motion first.
Okay, aye.
So Shraddha?
I'm sorry, can I step in really quick? I do just want to clarify, it did sound like Member Jefferson, I believe, was making a motion for sending the investigation to committee. So I think we need to address that if there's a second or a vote on that before moving to the special meeting motion.
Okay, thank you, Laura, for clarifying that. Thank you. So if there's a second on Michael's proposal to have this in a subcommittee, addressed in a subcommittee, and then just shared at the July meeting, if there's a second for that.
I don't have a second, but I'm wondering if we could have if we could have the staff do that, like compile information and do that research, and like Michelle and Tori to compile that for us so that we have like a report on everything that has been going on.
Yes, and that's something that we can definitely request, Shraddha. But yeah, if there's no, is there a second for Mr. Jefferson's suggestion for us to have this in committee instead?
I will. I second.
Okay, and so now with the second, if there's any further discussion on that. Douglas?
I guess for me, I don't know what sending it to the committees right away, just because we haven't even really agreed about what the next steps are as a group. And so I think my concern is just if the committees come up with 3 different areas, kind of, it doesn't seem, I just feel like that we need to kind of a base at first, unless, y'all can tell me kind of how the meetings in the committee would be structured, I guess, if you think that would be more, if it could expedite a response quicker if we did committee meetings versus a special meeting.
Thank you, Douglas. I also feel like, Laura, can you tell me, can I share my thoughts before does everybody have to?
Bring in Laura, before you bring in Laura, let me please allow me to answer Douglas. When we set up the committees were set up to specific items. So one of the items was investigating and research. So rather than the motion was, and I don't know if it passed or not, I'm not sure what went on, but my thing is that let it go to the committee instead of a special meeting, And at that committee meeting, we can come up with a set of procedures and what the investigation would look like and so forth and so on. And to further answer your question, the committee meeting would look just like the committee meetings you hold.
So just to make sure I understand, so this would go to the research committee first, and they would kind of come up with a plan and then present that at the July meeting. Is that correct?
That's what I'm suggesting, that we bring the plan, that committee meet, and then that committee brings a plan and procedures of how the investigation would be carried out, and then we can discuss and vote on it as a board.
All right, thank you for that. I didn't quite understand, but thank you. That clarifies it.
If I can chime in just for a second. Brother Jefferson, I see your wisdom on that motion. You and I are both on the research committee. My fear is that the sense of urgency for the community to address these issues, the precedents on the ground are probably going to push us to come up with solutions and answers before the July meeting. So unless we plan a special meeting where we could actually, all of us, put efforts together, I fear we would have a shortcomings come the July meeting. We won't have, in my humble opinion, have done the community that we just heard from justice as far as doing the research. It's going to take all of us on board, all hands on deck, to do the work that we're supposed to do. It can't be just on you and me.
Okay, actually, we wasn't talking about doing research. We were talking about the procedures to conduct an investigation. And I'm saying we can take that to committee and come up with those procedures and come back in July. The discussion before I said take it to committee was to do everything in the July meeting. So I don't see how we're harming or doing the public any injustice by if we meet in June to put together the procedures and the process for the investigation, and then we come back in July when we meet on the second or third Tuesday of the month. I don't see how we're failing the public.
Yes, Shraddha.
Yeah, I would like to echo that. I think these matters are very pressing, and I also wanted to kind of clarify that. Sorry, I'm also trying to read the chat here. Sorry. But I think that the point of us having the special meeting would be so that we can take all of this information and digest it together. I think it would be far too much to just put onto our one committee, especially considering that, yes, our community wants this immediate action and we need it because this is a very serious matter and this is ongoing, right? Like these are only the events that happened over this weekend, right? And I think that we really need to act now and to digest this information together because it is heavy and we need to be multifaceted with our approach as much as like our committee, and I have complete faith in our research committee, but I think that it would be beneficial for all of us to digest this information together and come up with a plan of action.
Yes,
it's the same thing. If the committee meets and the committee comes up with procedures and then brings it back to the whole board, it's the same thing. Then the whole board is putting in their input. I think we just talking about schematics right now.
I humbly disagree with you, brother. I think the sense of urgency, this was called for a special meeting. The country.
Man, stop acting like we're going to do something in the next 2 days. And I know there's people in the public still on this, but we're not finna do nothing in the next 2 days, and ain't nothing going to change. The police going to be the police. They were doing this before Floyd got killed. They've been doing this for 400 years. You heard the public comments. We're not going to change.
Okay, I'm going to call for a point of order right now. I'm going to call for a point of order.
What's your point of order? We having a discussion. What's your point of order? You call for
just for us to continue focused on the discussion. Yeah, on the motion that was brought up. So that's what I'm trying to do, Mr. Jefferson. And so, you know, just hearing the different board members, what I'm hearing is that we all would like to be involved in discussing what this process and procedure would look like for this investigation.
Okay, again, if we talking about point of order, you can't call them, you can't take a motion, get a second on the motion, and then have a discussion on the motion, and then throw it out. If we talking about point of order, then we shouldn't have never made this motion. What we should have did was had a discussion and let it die in discussion first. But we done put a motion on the table. So why don't we vote and kill the motion and then go back into another discussion? And since it's so urgent, then I make a motion that we have a special meeting tomorrow to make the procedures and of how we're going to do this investigation, because it's getting late and I'm getting tired and I'm getting cranky. So let's move this along and cut out all the hijinks.
I second your motion, brother.
You know, can we take a quick 2-minute break? I want
We just had
to.
a motion second. We just had the motion second. Let's take a vote.
What are we taking a vote on? Can you be specific on the vote?
We're taking a motion to have our special meeting tomorrow.
That's not possible given Open Meetings Act.
The motion been second. The motion's been second.
We can vote, but I mean, that is important.
So let's vote then. And
it's
then,
important to note that we can't
go through the hijinks.
We're not able to have a meeting tomorrow because of the information.
That's why I was trying to take it to committee. The committee can move quicker than we can do a meeting. The committee can meet in the next couple of days.
So are you proposing then that the committee meet in a really short time frame and then we have a special meeting?
That's what I'm suggesting. I wasn't going to wait till next year to do it.
No, I understand, but the end of my sentence was, would we follow the committee meeting with a special meeting still prior to the July meeting?
Why would we need a special meeting? We can meet in July.
Because the rest of the board wants to get involved in a shortened time frame before the July meeting.
Then there's no need for it to go to committee.
Except I thought the idea was that the committee could draft some stuff and pull it together for the whole group.
Wait, see, we just going in a erroneous circle here. When I first said let's take it to committee so we could draft something out, everybody said they want to be involved. If we all want to be involved, then let's us all be involved. Let's do the special meeting in 3 days then. That way we satisfy the public whatever is called act and blah blah blah. And everybody's involved and everybody's happy.
Elder Jefferson, this is Tori. Can you hear me? Can you all hear me right now?
Yes.
The conversation has gotten a little, I need some help just clarifying the minutes. Do you all mind helping clarify for me? What motion is on the table right now? Are there multiples or just the one to hold a special meeting tomorrow?
We had the original motion that was made was by Joan. And that was for us to have a special meeting to further discuss the process and procedure we would use to carry out this investigation. And then there was another point made by Mr. Jefferson, but I had called that vote on having that special meeting.
Okay, and then there's a second motion also pending by Elder Jefferson regarding a special meeting specifically tomorrow.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for helping me clear that up. It's really important that our minutes are an accurate reflection of what's happening right now. Elder Jefferson, I understand that you made a motion. Are you willing to allow vote on the first one, or is there a process piece why that shouldn't happen at this time?
I am very lost right now. I don't know where we at. I thought we had already voted on Jones' motion, and then all of a sudden the committee discussion came back up. I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry. I'm kind of lost.
Can I call that vote again, Tori? Just as a way to clarify, because we are getting a bit jumbled and it's been a late evening. So would that be okay to do?
Yeah, I think that would really help with making sure our minutes are an accurate reflection of what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori. Thank you very much for helping to clarify that. So again, I'm gonna call the question on Jones' motion for the Human Rights Board to hold a special meeting from here between now and our July meeting to speak specifically to the process and procedure that we will use to have this investigation. So that's the question that's been called. And if I can get, instead of calling the ayes or the nays, can we do a roll call, please, at this point regarding that motion? So Douglas, if you're in favor of us having a special meeting between now and July.
But I do want to make a comment that if a committee meeting wants to happen either before that special meeting for the procedure, before then, and then kind of help with that special meeting, I'd be fine with that. Whatever's, I guess, whatever expedites it the most. That's just my comment, but aye.
Thank you. Adrian?
I agree with everything that Douglas just said, and I'll vote aye, but I also think if there's some utility to having the committee prepare something, since they can meet sooner, then I think that could help our special meeting to be more streamlined and go faster if there's been any groundwork already laid by the committee. But I vote aye on a special meeting before July.
Okay, Shraddha?
Aye.
And Samia?
Aye.
Okay, so then the Human Rights Board, and Michael Jefferson, Mr. Jefferson?
I'm sorry. I'm
For
sorry.
The question that was called about having the special meeting?
Aye.
Thank you. So then the Human Rights Board will move forward in holding that special meeting. And given that there were member Douglas and member Adrian brought up that point that if we want to hold a special committee meeting, Mr. Jefferson, before then that's something that we can do as well, and that we have been doing as part of our Human Rights Board. So that's something that we can talk about as well. So yes, Mr. Jefferson.
What's the date of our special meeting first?
Is that something that we can decide after tonight, Tori? And is that okay?
Go ahead, Tori, but I think you can.
Yes, you can decide it after tonight. What would happen is my office would send the doodle poll with a couple of dates. We would appreciate a little bit of clarification on a time frame on when you need it, but that's it.
Okay, so we can send that information to Tori, and so that way we can send a doodle poll to the members of the board. Okay, so is there any other, anything else that the board would like to bring up at this point before we close this meeting? Douglas?
Just real quick, can we just kind of agree, or I guess give a range right now? What are we looking at a special meeting next week? Just kind of have a range in mind.
Okay, what are the thoughts from the other members? So are we talking about a week, a couple of weeks? I know that we would want to hold this before our July meeting, and our July meeting, I believe, is July 19th.
What I heard was that there was some urgency around this. And then what we're trying to do is make sure that we're being responsive to all of the folks who turned out tonight to share with us and bring those concerns forward. So I would say in between 1 and 2 weeks out would probably be good. We got to give enough time to plan for it. And at the same time, we don't want it to be 3 or 4 weeks out before we even start the process.
Okay. So is that how does the rest of the board, is that fine? Within 2 weeks, we'll have this special meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I hope that helps you, Tori. So within 2 weeks, for us to schedule that special meeting. Okay, are there any other comments that any of the board members wishes to say right now before we end this meeting?
I'd just like to thank the community that opened their hearts to us and felt that our Human Rights Board was a safe space for them to really be vulnerable, and it's greatly appreciative, and we hope that you will always consider our board a space for you to turn to, and this is what we're here for. Thank you.
Thank you, Samia. Anyone else? We can't hear you, Mr. Jefferson.
Yeah, my comment is, I just don't see what we saw about even 2 weeks when the committee could have got together in the next few days and put together procedures on how to investigate. I think this party attitude we got that everybody has to be involved doesn't serve the public. I think production serves the public. I just don't get it. I mean, I sat up here and I listened to the public for 3.5 hours. We certainly could have met as a committee. And again, I'm just going to voice what I said last week. Every time I bring up something, it's kicked down, knocked to the curb for no other reason just to be doing it. And I really feel, I understand why they're rising all over the country right now and what went on. See, tonight we talked about the police and what the police did. But white supremacy comes in all colors. And y'all may not know it, but you live in a fishbowl and you all act like white supremacists. You get this attitude and their mentality came up in their schools. You get up in their system. And you get up their ideology. And it's in you. You can't see it from my angle because I'm Black and I feel it every day. But I don't see what we saw by moving it in 2 weeks. So I don't see this great urgency that we did. All I see is that you shut down the Black man again. And that's why we riding. That's why they tearing things up. We tired of what this board does to me happening to us every day by a country we supposed to be citizens in. We're no more citizens of this country than the rats and roaches got the power to vote. And that's what's really going on. And that's what we mean by Black Lives Matter. Because most of the time when Black people speak, nobody hears a goddamn thing we say because nobody cares what we have to say. And that's why we angry. And that's why we upset. And that's why you having the protest. Damn what the police did. The police do what the police are supposed to do. The police were made to keep the slaves on the plantation. So even in 2020, they did what they doing back in 1700. Where are you going? Where you supposed to be? Where your papers? When they pull us over as black men and black women, they ask us where we going, why we here, and what we doing. Because we have no rights to be nowhere unless they say we can be somewhere. We're dehumanized. We're devalued. So I don't see what we accomplish by not taking it to the committee and letting the committee come up with something in a few days. And we're going to wait 2 weeks, and we don't even know what day in those 2 weeks we're going to meet. I just don't get it. Just like I don't get how come black people are not human.
Mr. Jefferson, thank you for sharing that, and just to address the what you've brought up, why don't we hold the subcommittee meeting before we have the special meeting, because there will be time. So is that I'm asking the rest of the board members that we can have the subcommittee meeting, which is, before we hold that special meeting, and that will help in laying some of that groundwork that is needed when we hold the special meeting with the rest of the board. So I'm not sure if I need to call the motion on that at this point, or if we just are agreeing that we're going to have that subcommittee meeting. So Laura, if you can answer that for me.
You can go ahead and make the motion yourself to hold the committee meeting and then take a vote.
Okay, so I move to hold a subcommittee meeting for the research and investigation subcommittee before we have the special meeting that's going to be held within 2 weeks. So if I'm going to ask the rest of the board, if you're in agreement, please say aye.
I second your motion, though.
Oh, thank you for seconding. I'm sorry. Second the motion by Samia, and I'm going to call the question, or if there's any discussion. I'm sorry, now with the second for Samia. And if
Chair
not,
Nicholchair, this is Tori.
Yes.
I just want to clarify, your motion is for a committee meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any discussion? Okay, so I'll just call the question that we hold the subcommittee before we hold our special meeting. That will be held within 2 weeks. So if the members of the board agree, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? Okay, so thank you. We'll be holding that subcommittee as well. So any other board member at this point, if you'd like to make any closing remarks or share any final thoughts at this point. Okay. So again, we thank everyone that was on this call with us. I want to personally thank every single one of the Human Rights Board members for their work and their commitment to the work that we have to do in our community. It's a long road of work, and we are well aware of the legacy of injustices and discrimination and racist acts that have been committed against the Black community and people of color in our city and across the state. And so we are entrusted with this ordinance, the Human Rights Board ordinance, and it is our goal to listen to all the things that were shared with us tonight, and then again, move forward in having that investigation. So thank you everyone for joining us, and I encourage you to keep in contact with us by sending us emails, by checking the website for our meetings. And so we look forward to serving our community. So thank you, and good night to everyone. So at this point, we close the meeting. Thank you.